we go. Okay, so welcome back to Bird Banter. Today's guest, a special guest, a good friend of mine, Andrés Jiménez Monge. Is that correct?
It's perfect.
Hopefully I didn't butcher that too bad,
You
Andrés.
got all the R's and all the H sounding sounds.
um, for everyone, Andrés is a conservation biologist, a naturalist, and the new executive director of Ontario Nature. Andrés has spent years working across bird conservation, species at risk advocacy, public engagement, environmental leadership in Canada. Originally from Costa Rica, he also brings a perspective shaped by one of the most biodiverse regions on Earth. One of the things I've always appreciated about Andrés is the energy he brings to the conservation work. It's passion, it's love, it's authentic coming through about our wildlife and about conservation. So the losses are real and the challenges are urgent. But Andrés brings a sense of momentum, curiosity, humor, and possibility to the conversation. He reminds us that serious work doesn't have to lose its humanity. And despite all his work in the bird world, he was actually a herper before he was a birder. So we'll definitely get into that too. Andrés, welcome to Bird Banter.
Paul, it's so good to speak with you, to see you, and to be here at this fantastic new podcast.
Wow, we appreciate your time. We know you're a busy man. So you know what? We'll get right into it. First question I have for you. You worked across so many parts of conservation, species at risk, bird conservation, policy, now leading Ontario Nature. Looking back, what first pulled you into conservation in the first place?
That is an interesting question that it took me a very long time to answer, because I've been asked that before. How did you start working in conservation? Why did you stay for so long? And it is a journey that started very early for me. When I was 8, I had defined I wanted to be a marine biologist. That was it for me. I wanted to be a biologist, nothing else. It was a bit of a fireman stage, but I got past the fireman stage and definitely went into biology. And when did I go into conservation and not, let's say, research and creating papers and doing academics? I am not entirely sure. I only have theories. I think it came with me. And besides it coming with me, there was so much TV of this amazing conservationists that were going to the places I couldn't reach in Costa Rica. And I kind of wanted to be them too. These folks that were going to Ostional or to Nancite beaches in Costa Rica. I was like, I want to go there and work with those sea turtles. But ultimately, I think it's my father's fault. He was a farmer, and he always said that the most noble profession that ever existed was feeding people from the land. And I think I just do that in my own way, not with plants, but trying to connect with animals and ecosystems. And I've come to understand that it is that connection of when I used to join him at the farm and I would just go collect blackberries and find some crayfish, that I decided that needed to be kept and that I was in a good position to support it.
Wow, that's wild. It's almost like you were born to do this. It was like you were placed here to be doing this and be advocate for wildlife. And
that's how it
looking
has
at,
always felt.
yeah.
Because I did work, and people laugh because this is not on my CV or on my LinkedIn. I did work for Amazon Tier 2 support for Kindle. So if you were angry at your Kindle and you would call someone, that would be me. And I could have followed that path as many of my Costa Rican friends that eventually became managers and directors at Amazon, very solid, amazing pay. And I did other things in the process, but I always came back to this.
Well, we're so glad you did come back to it and that you're here because you're making a massive impact, which is we all benefit from. So a lot of people know you through birds. That's been my exposure. But you were actually a herper first. which is sort of near and dear to my heart. I was the little guy who was collecting toads and frogs and snakes and turtles. What was it about reptiles and amphibians that hooked you before birds did?
Of course, I had to be a herper, chase for snakes and turtles and amphibians in Costa Rica, and then come to the country that has some of the least amount of snakes and snake species and frogs. And that's how I got into birds. It was winter, the thing that got me into birds,
Ah,
because there weren't that many snakes here, and I was here. And so I was like, so what is there when I'm looking for these creatures and they're not there? And I love amphibian and reptiles because you just said it. It is a very intimate connection with them. With
mhm,
birds, you feel like you're kind of just looking them from far. And
right.
that is very special in its own because you get to see a lot more of their behavior. With salamander, you get to have an intimate connection by holding it in your hands and realizing that that yellow spotted salamander might be older than you and it's
Yeah.
there in your hands. And if you manage to grasp that, it's such an intimate responsibility. With birds, but you don't see much of the salamander's life. You have it there for a minute, and then you don't see anything of it. With birds, you get to see so much of their lives, how they create nests. I don't know if this is with their willingness, by the way. I don't know. I don't think there's any consent here from the birds on us being watching them at all times. But you get to see them build a nest. You get to see them feed families. You get to see them fight predators. You get to see them interact and sing and do so many things. And so I feel that the connection to both of them is different.
Right.
And I am blessed to have both an intimate connection and a very in-depth connection to different parts of this world.
That's wild. That's wild. Okay, so do herpers and birders experience nature differently?
So differently. But it also depends on your geography. In Costa Rica, where I grew up, the majority of amphibian and reptiles come out at night, which essentially means that you need to go out at 6 p.m. until 2 a.m. And so my best friend, her name is Nancy, I sent her a big hug. My best friend is a birder, and she would always be annoyed at me because I would be coming into bed and she would be going out to go birding, and she would be annoyed at me because she wanted to go birding with me. She would find the snakes because it is always the birders looking up that step on these snakes. It's always them. And so I would be annoyed at her because she was seeing more snakes than I was. And then I would emerge from my room at 11 or noon, and she would go like, you'll see no birds. And I would go out and see the one really rare bird of the day. And she would become even angrier. It was so much fun. And so
Oh,
the experience is quite different here. Ornithologists know, I don't know, 400, 500 species of birds, know 500 species of birds and everything they do, and so many plumages. Herpers here know really, really in depth 12 or 20 species. And so that in itself is very different. But then the whole idea of getting waders or not getting waders and then going to really muddy, stinky water to just jump and catch a turtle, right? Because herpers have this instinct. We need to catch stuff. I'm not telling anyone to go and harass animals and catch stuff, but it kind of comes with the territory. Because if not, first of all, there are many species that you wouldn't be able to identify if they're not on hand,
right.
especially in the tropics. There are many species that you wouldn't be able to get if you don't catch them really quickly. And so that already creates a massive difference on how reactive you need to be, how close you need to get, than with birds, in which you need to use your binoculars to see them from afar, or be very, very quiet and move there and try to find so
Mm,
many of them. So the experience can be radically different, but we are equally determined. That's what I would say. The
yes.
determination of birders or herpers is unparalleled. We go to very, very long lengths to be able to find that creature we've never seen, appreciated, discovered. And that I think is the same.
Awesome. Okay, so conservation work can be heavy. The losses are real and the challenges can feel endless. But you always seem to bring energy, humor, and positivity to the work. How do you manage to stay that positive with everything you do and see?
I used to tell my friends that I hated humans. And I've come to understand after many years that I find humans fascinating. They are the most interesting out of all the living beings in so many ways. But you gotta be real patient with yourself when discovering humans because it
Yeah.
can confront you with your humanity, and it should.
Mhm.
And I think that's where a lot of my hope and my positive attitude comes from. And I've gone through years in regretting being a conservationist, of thinking I did the wrong decisions, and I'm not getting enough money to cover my family's needs or get them through college, and that I'm losing a battle, and that it will be all pointless. In a matter of thinking, it is. It is, because if humans were to go extinct and destroy nature, nature will find a way. It will come back. We're not as powerful as to be able to eradicate nature for this planet. It is not possible. We will eradicate ourselves and produce a tremendous amount of suffering in the process, and we will lose many fantastic organisms, and many of them will come back in other ways. And so it is only through understanding that I am here for you, and that you're here for me, and that I'm here for the rest of the humans that need to survive, that gets me hope. And so it
Mhm.
was silly when I used to think that I hated humans, because in fact, I deeply love all the humans. And I love them in the way of taking care of the sheer environment that they will enjoy, benefit from, and discover, and live. And recently I found a paradox. It's called the Stockdale paradox. And it basically says that the way hope is kept is through confronting and having the discipline to confront the brutal reality, while being completely faithful that you will eventually succeed.
Mhm.
Will I see the success? Maybe, maybe not. But I have the unwavering trust that no matter how brutal reality is, there is always a way forward.
Well, I can tell you, knowing you for several years, in the fact of your passion and your way of articulating and educating people does have an impact. So, when we came up with these questions, and the conservation work can be heavy, but it's the fact that we are seeing some wins and educating more and more people all the time in various parts of conservation, which is so key. And I think that's what gives me hope, knowing that we are a part of change, a small part of change, but we're a part of change. And hopefully we can continue to educate people, and it just keeps going out further and further.
And
Um,
Paul, you've said something that was critical for me to get past the depressive stage, or half the story of this is all very sad. No one forced this on me.
mm,
I chose it. And it comes with a lot of grief and loss every time I go through a place and it's destroyed, and I see them, or I see a dead turtle in the road. But I had a choice. I got to choose it. Many people just stand from the sidelines and
yes.
only get to see. And you said it. I am a part of the protection of nature, the conservation of nature, and teaching people to love nature. Many people don't get that chance.
Yeah. That's so true. And we're so grateful for the space that we're in and what we can be a part of. Um, the crazy thing is we just want to keep going harder and stronger and educate more people. And in particular in our space where there's glass, it needs to be treated, sort of thing. But there are so many other things though that people need to consider with nature, with biodiversity, and with conservation, even small steps that they can do themselves without really investing any money.
Choices.
Um, so choices, that's a good one. Choices. Okay, so Costa Rica is one of the most biodiverse places on earth. How did your experiences there shape the way you think about conservation today?
Really interesting. Last week, I was telling someone that I had a Latin American way of thinking of conservation, and they were like, how is that different from a non-Latin American way of thinking of conservation? And it took me a while to be able to articulate how it was different. And in this way, Costa Rica is not only its environment, 5% of the biodiversity there, but also its cultural processes. Costa Rica sits in the middle of North and South America, and all the indigenous groups there were a bridge between the Incas in the south and all the First Nations there, but also the Mayans and the indigenous peoples in the north. And a lot of things exchanged there.
Mm.
Animals also moved south and north. So why I say I have this Latin American way of thinking is because of the cultural processes that unavoidably shape my mind before coming here. Not only the waves of people from the US coming to protect nature there with good intentions and with their own way of doing things that was in some cases effective and in some cases it wasn't, but also the waves of colonization that the country went through. And it was not the British, it was the Spanish, which were very, very different in many different ways. And how quickly the Spanish left the empire in Central and South America compared to the British that linger. And and so all of that shaped my cultural understanding of how the environment is done, not only having that enormous amount of biodiversity. And so that's one. But the second one is the importance of shared public nature, I would say.
Mm.
Um, and this really shapes everything I do. In Costa Rica, people here love going there to the beaches because they get access to the ocean.
Right.
Because the beaches are public. They also get to the river because the rivers are public. I remember landing here and trying to get access to a lake, and it was impossible.
Mm.
It was simply not possible. There was no water around that was accessible. I could just see it from afar.
Right.
Costa Ricans are so naturally oriented because nature's so close to you. Close to you
Right.
from a governance perspective that not everyone owns it, or owning it is different. And also, the intensity of 5% of the world's biodiversity in a tropical country means that everything is really close to you. So monkeys are around, iguanas are around, everything is happening at all times. And you get to discover a ton of nature at the same time.
Mm.
And so that sense of connection, responsibility is something that I really try to bring to the work I do here. Connection and responsibility towards the totality of nature. One of the most shocking things that I confront here in Ontario and in Canada is going by a plot of land and seeing that the forest was cut down. And you would wonder why that is shocking is because in Costa Rica, you cannot change the use of soil. If it is forest, it needs to be kept as forest. You could do it illegally, but if not, you require permits. And so someone goes and sees some forest being cut and they call the authorities. It might not work, but we still get shocked. Here, I just drive and I see all the forest down and I go like, how is this possible? And it is mostly because there's one article in the Costa Rican Constitution, Article 50. Every Costa Rican deserves or has the right to an ecologically balanced environment.
Wow.
That will shape a Costa Rican and will shape how nature is understood and has won us a lot of the environmental gains that we've achieved. Because if it is an activity that does not bring an ecologically balanced environment, we get a right to challenge it in court.
Wow. So they've really sort of embraced what they have and have said, we're going to live cohesively
Or we
in the
try.
areas. Yeah, yeah. Where it's sad here in Ontario and in particular in Toronto where we are, where you know more and more building gets spread out further and further away from the city core, but we are removing green space and we're displacing wildlife. where I am in Toronto, I'm not far from the Humber River, and we get a plethora of wildlife: the foxes, the coyotes, the skunks, the raccoons, and everything. And it's uh, I always I don't know. I always hate when people say, we need to remove this coyote, or that fox could be a danger. Well, yeah, it can be, but
You
we're
have no
taking over
crocodiles.
yeah, but we're taking over their space, which it, it
And
it
this is the
it
dissonance that happens here, Paul, is I've discovered that there's the NIMBY of the environment. Is the people that want to see wildlife, not in the backyard. The people that want to see wildlife in Costa Rica, in Africa, in South America, where it belongs, right? There you can have the crocodiles. There you can have the massive nesting colonies of birds. There you can have all of that, and not here. And so I'll tell you the downside of coming and how Costa Rica shapes our thinking. Um, One of it is there's so much diversity, the depth is many times sacrificed. I
mm,
am in awe of the depth of the naturalists in Canada and in Ontario. They go so deep in the knowledge and understanding of an animal, and it's because if you don't have that much diversity, you kind of see the same things over and over again. But you see them in different life stages, and so you get to know them really well, like they were friends. In Costa Rica, with 800 species of birds, and you wanted to see more, you see one for 30 seconds, and you don't see it maybe ever again in your life. What did you learn? You learn nothing but check a checklist. And the
mm,
second thing is what I'm saying about Costa Rica might sound wonderful to many people, but there will be 4 million angry Costa Ricans at what I'm saying right now, because we're always wanting more of how conservation should be done, but also going through the same conflicts that you go here. There's been many waves trying to get oil in Costa Rica, right?
right.
There's many waves that have tried to establish gold mines in Costa Rica. There's been many waves that have tried to eliminate the green belt around the central city of San Jose and then sacrificing our water intake in the mountains. So all of that exists too.
Mm,
But we have Article 50.
thank goodness. Thank goodness. Okay, so you recently stepped into the executive director role at Ontario Nature. What excites you the most about where the organization can go in the coming years?
Oh my God, so much. It's for those that are listening that are not familiar with Ontario Nature. Ontario Nature is the best kept secret in the environment in Ontario. It's a 95-year-old charity that has been part of either central or peripheral supportive part of a lot of the big nature wins that have happened in this province, from the Greenbelt to the Brewster Conservancy to the Species at Risk Act to the creation of the protected area system in Ontario. And so there's a ton of wisdom, ton of failure, ton of success that I get to learn from, that
Mm,
we get to learn from. That's so
yes.
exciting.
Yeah.
But then also making Ontario Nature not be a secret is also very exciting. I get to do this and I get to say yes to so many invitations because I want people to know the amazing work and dedication that Ontario Nature staff members and supporters have had for many years. But I think the central part that gets me the most excited is to think that anyone that wants to support conservation in Ontario should not do it alone,
Mm,
should not have to do it alone.
right,
And
right.
that's what Ontario Nature has been doing in the past 95 years. We have something called the Nature Network. These are 155 nature groups that are part of our board and of our organization. We have 9,000 members and we have over 100,000 supporters. And it is because in 95 years of work, if you want to do something for the environment, you're gonna find a home with us. You're gonna find a community. You're gonna find your people. If you're a toddler taking their first walk in nature with your grandpa and your mother, you should have a place to do it, and that's Ontario Nature, or we're part of it. If you are a newcomer that is coming into the city and need to find your people to go and discover the new nature that is around you, we want to be part of that. You should not have to do it alone. If you're someone that has been working in nature For many years, I want to leave a legacy gift into the future and know that this will generate things that you will never get to see. You should find a place to do that. And we are working towards being that place. And for First Nations, we've learned so much with them, and we want to be those very trusted, I'm not going to say allies, but co-walkers that
Mm.
that are ready to be invited into the work you do, not only for you to wait to work with someone, we're ready to work with you too. And so that's what I think. It's building that community so no one has to do this alone, because as you said at first, it's really tough. And it's only sustained in time if millions of hands participate.
Well, it's funny. We're stronger if we work together. And, one of the things over the years, we've gotten some accolades because we've done some very high profile projects, but I'm the first one to share that it takes a village. Feather Friendly standing on the shoulders of a lot of people who came before us, the advocacy groups, the researchers, the scientists. I think, I think certain situations in the world have proven it, is that we are stronger working together with, sharing similar messages, working with like-minded people, aligning ourselves, so we can reach broader audiences. And that's been our goal over the years is, we eat, live, breathe, sleep this, but I'm amazed at the number of people who still don't even really understand that it's an issue or that there's a solution. Or in the greater scheme of things, several things you can do yourself to aid in conservation, not just in birds, but in all wildlife. So, yeah, we so appreciate your friendship, your partnership, and all of that. And hopefully going forward, we can align ourselves, I don't know, tighter or stronger, so we can be sharing each other's messages about conservation.
And that is absolutely critical because the lives of millions of birds are in the line or on the line, and the solution is clear. It's cost effective, it's effective, and it's low cost in many cases. There is no reason for us not to push this. The joy that birds generate, I see it in all the people when they look out and they see a bird and they're so happy. And this little thing we could do, treating our windows to save millions of lives, is something that we need to keep on working on.
Yeah. Earlier this spring, many people were struck by the annual bird layout organized by Flap Canada here in Toronto, where the bodies of collision victims are arranged publicly to visualize the scale of the issue. For someone who works in conservation communication, what role do moments like that play?
What a difficult question, Paul, because there aren't that many moments like that. You know,
Yeah.
when a forest is cut, you don't stop for a second to say, damn, when you receive a piece of furniture made of wood, right? You don't connect sometimes that was generating oxygen just a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
And this is quite a unique moment that I haven't really witnessed. I think the most similar thing to that I witnessed in my life is maybe with seashells or with sea turtle eggs when we return seashells to the ocean. And that used to be really hard because you didn't know where they were coming from. Now there's a project in Costa Rica that is using AI to be able to return the tons of seashells that have been collected in airports. And with sea turtles, when I used to work with sea turtles, and we would find eggs and they were still viable, and you would get to go bury them again and hope for the best. And you would need to know how to bury them, so you would aim to have this turtles come out. And we're very good with openings and we're not too good with closures, right? And the layout for flap might have started as an awareness piece, but it also started as a grieving moment. Because if you're a volunteer and you're walking around buildings picking up the things you love dead against the window, it's really rough.
I
And
remember. Oh,
tell
sorry. I
me,
was just gonna say that the first year I did the layout, I really had a hard time. And I called it brutal and beautiful, because there's the brutalness of the fact of these birds were alive. They were flying. Some of them have made massive migrations only to, collide with glass. There were species of birds that I've never seen in real life, but unfortunately I see them past. I think one of the first years I did it, there was a flap volunteer, and I do apologize, I forget the woman's name, and she was having quite a moment, and I just asked her if she was okay, and she was explaining to me she'd been a birder for like 50 years, 60 years of her life, and she had never seen this bird alive, and she was holding it in her hand, and it was a species at risk. And it really just it hits home. I think there's a lot of people who don't even realize the species of birds that even fly through here in Toronto and surrounding area. Again, there's species of birds that I would almost look at being more on the exotic side based on their colorations and feathers and stuff like that. Yeah, yeah. So it really had a profound effect on me. And so I feel like every day I'm fighting for that one or two birds that I can save today, sort of thing. But I think it's so important that these are done because it brings massive awareness to the issue. We do a lot of talks and a lot of conferences. I was just down at the American Institute of Architects conference in San Diego, and there was a few architects walking through, and they'd stop and talking to them, and they were aware of the issue, but not to the extent. And when you start talking about the numbers, us as humans can't really wrap our head around that. Like, they're so massive, but we just need to keep plugging. We need to keep educating, and we need the flaps of the world to be continuing to do this, to bringing that awareness.
you've summarized it better than I could ever.
I don't know about that. You're more articulate than I am. Birding and citizen science have grown enormously over the last decade. Do you think public participation is genuinely changing conservation outcomes?
It's impossible not to.
Yeah.
Whether it goes as fast as we want it, that's a different thing. But I think it's impossible for someone to like birds and not even factor a little bit of it within their decision making to it today. And what I believe we can do is generate more spaces for them to be able to do more.
Right.
One of the issues with conservation, and I believe this is your case, right? You feel that you need to be part of an organization in order to be able to do something, that you need an organization to be able to treat windows or to manage invasive species in the back of your ravine or to go and talk with politicians. And I think that's a myth we need to break, because people need to be able to recover their agency, to recover the sense that nature is everyone's choice and everyone's responsibility, and that you cannot give up that responsibility, especially if you love the things that are out there making you happy. And that responsibility comes in a daily shape and form. And you just choose not to accept that responsibility and not to live that responsibility. And so I believe that if people enjoy birds, it's impossible for them not to factor it in on how they live.
Wow, that was extremely well said. Okay. So you've moved into major leadership roles over the years. Does becoming a conservation executive change your personal relationship with nature at all?
Of course, man, I hate budgets and I'm looking at budgets all the time.
uh,
It does change it in the sense that if I wouldn't have gone through the prior 20, 30 years of field work and talking with people, I wouldn't be able to shape things as I can shape them now. But most important, I wouldn't have the drive to be outside that I have now. I sit in front of a computer a long time, talking to people, being an ambassador, creating relationships, making sure that the governance of the organization works and making sure that all the boring thing that matters is done well. And this is now my actual job. I do the boring thing that needs to be done well, quietly. And if there are no massive news about that boring stuff, that means we're doing a good job because we are sorting everything that needs to be done in order to do the fun stuff, which I don't do anymore. But that means that every time someone in Ontario Nature says, hey, someone wants to meet you in X nature reserve, or someone wants to go to Cothramilog Nature Reserve, will you go with them? Or we have a youth council meeting in a wetland, you want to come? I say yes, because nothing is more important than being out there, because I believe that for environmental problem solving, solutions are, or creativity and innovation is a result of proximity. And I think that's how we came to the solution of the markings on the windows. If you just try to solve it from a computer, you won't reach to the solution. You need proximity in order to be able to find the human solutions, but also find the environmental solutions. And so I prioritize proximity now, even though I know the computer things, the budgets are absolutely critical. I prioritize proximity.
I like that. I like that.
You got to be out there.
So we'll end with a quick rapid fire round. This is something new that Encore came up with.
Hey, Encore, talk to you.
Yes, and it's actually quite cool. I thought of he thought of this. So here's the quick rapid fire round. Dawn chorus or frog chorus?
Frog chorus 100 times, but in the tropics.
Favorite Costa Rican bird?
Oh, that's a hard one. It depends on the day, but I'm gonna go with mannequin. I'm gonna go with long-tailed mannequin. The way they pair up for life and then they do the dance and flip around and females come and see them, long-tailed mannequin.
Awesome. Favorite reptile or amphibian?
Okay, I'm gonna give you a Canadian one and a Costa Rican one. Costa Rican, it would be the amazing fertilans. Bothrops asper, aka terciopelo, is one of the most venomous snakes in Costa Rica. It kills a lot of people. It's also it's a scary cat. This is why it kills so many people, because it's always afraid it's going to get killed, and so it bites really easily. So fertilans, it's one of my favorite ones in Costa Rica. And in Canada, it's going to have to be a turtle. And it's going to have to be, I'm going to go with snapping turtle. That one is so magnificent. I never managed to find it in Costa Rica. We have the same species, and I had to come here to see it. So snapping turtle.
And they are so prehistoric looking. Like, I remember as a kid seeing them, I thought that's the closest thing to a dinosaur, I'm ever going to be close to. So
now I'm going to leave you homework, Paul.
Okay.
You're going to go to Costa Rica. I'm going to help you. And you're going to go find a leatherback sea turtle.
Oh, yes.
You will have seen the dinosaur.
Yeah, there you go. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Okay. One Ontario species more people should appreciate.
Of any creature?
Yes.
Flying squirrels.
I like that. I like that. You threw me for a curve there.
I know. It took me 10 years to find one. Found one a couple of weeks ago. Magnificent.
No way. Okay, so last one. Binoculars or a headlamp?
Headlamp. No questions asked. Headlamps. They open a world you never knew existed. Is literally the upside down. And you
Yes.
need one headlamp, and there's only one spot of light, and your world is that one spot of light that keeps you safe and also discovering new things. And the moment you put on top of one, suddenly something new appears. Best feeling ever.
Wow. Wow.
I might be a
Wow.
herper.
Yeah. Well, Andres, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for
And
having me. This was an amazing
no,
set of conversations and questions and discoveries. I
I
appreciate it
know
very much.
I could keep you here the rest of the day, but I know you're an extremely busy man, and Ontario Nature is extremely lucky to have you. And I know that you will continue to do some awesome things. And we're here to tag along for the journey and assist wherever needed.
I'll take that trust as fuel. Thank you so much.
Sounds good. Thanks again, Andres.
We good?
We're good.